Hi, everyone. It's Natalie at StreamHorseTV. I'm here with Gary Palmisano, director of Churchill Downs Racing Club, to talk about a very special moment for the racing club, its most successful horse, and for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and the industry at large. Hi, Gary. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me first, who's Warriors Club?
So Warriors Club was the first horse that the Churchill Downs Racing Club ever purchased. We purchased him in 2015 when he was a unraced 2-year-old. And he kind of set the racing club off. He kickstarted the whole thing and was an incredible horse for not only us, but for the 200 members that made up his group. And he took us on an incredible journey, amassing over $800,000 in earnings, winning a graded stakes race, and kind of put not only the racing club, but sort of that whole micro share ownership kind of experience on the map, and kind of kickstarted all the new and fun things that we see in racing today. I think he had a big part in starting that off.
What is your favorite memory of him?
I think his first win in the Spendthrift Stallion Stakes was a whole lot of fun. He had run once or twice before that race at a couple different places and hadn't really ran all that well. And the Spendthrift Sire Stakes was a new concept that B. Wayne Hughes started at Churchill Downs to promote his Spendthrift Sires, and Warriors Club, being by Warriors Reward, was eligible for this race, and he was still a maiden taking on Stakes Company. The whole racing club thing was still a very new experience. And when he won that race here at Churchill, and we had probably 200 or 300 people in the winner's circle, actually had to take the picture out on the racetrack because we had so many folks. There was just so much excitement and so much pure joy, and people just so happy to have been a part of that. That was a whole lot of fun, and that really kickstarted the journey that he took us on.
And he raced in a couple of Triple Crown, or maybe 3 Triple Crown race undercards, right? What was that like, having, his 200 owners come to those big race days?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was tough because we were trying to find seating and make travel arrangements and go through all that stuff. But his race in the Churchill Downs Stakes on the Kentucky Derby undercard, where he got beat like a dirty lip.
By a nose hair.
That would have been, we had NBC in position to film the whole mayhem after. Like, we apparently behind the scenes, because I'm pretty superstitious, but apparently behind the scenes there was this group that was coordinating kind of what would happen if in case it did. And they told me after the fact all the things they had planned and set up, but it didn't work out. We were second best that day, but it was a great experience. And we ran on Belmont Stakes Day, and our members got to go up there. I think it was the year either Pharaoh or Justify won.
It was Justify, yeah. Justify, he was at the Met Mile, yeah.
Yeah, so that was another great experience. And he won at Saratoga, he won at Keeneland, he won at Oaklawn. So we checked off a lot of the most premier racing venues in the country with him, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed their time with him.
Yeah, and so just tell me a little bit about how the ownership groups are set up, and then who sits down and plans long term.
So each individual club is sort of its own entity, its own bank account. In Warriors Club's case, and in all the racing clubs, we try to get 200 members, and they each put up $500. So that brings us in $100,000 that we use for that specific club. Using Warriors Club as an example, we spent $55,000 on him as a 2-year-old, and which allowed us to keep the remaining $45,000 back for all of his expenses. And as he won races and amassed earnings, we were able to purchase more horses and have more fun, and ultimately continue to enjoy the racing experience and being in the paddock and being in the winner's circle and seeing how these different horses develop. So each group is in its own sort of entity, and they all kind of earn their share. And as they win races, that money stays in their account. And in the case of Warriors Club, our team here, myself, our track president at the time, Kevin Flannery, our executive director of racing, Mike Ziegler, we have made sure that retiring these horses is the #1 priority, and making sure that they all come back home to the racing club where we know where they all are. And in Warriors Club's case, he's going to be joining the TRF herd at Chestnut Hall Farm here in Louisville, Kentucky. And we're going to give them a $30,000 check, as well as multiple other racing charities along with it. So that kind of culminates the experience with Warriors Club. We took it from start to finish, and that's kind of what we're most proud of.
And once the decision is made, it sounds like it was a resounding decision that you're going to make sure, we'll get to that in a minute, that you're going to make sure you get all your horses coming back, and you keep an eye on them. How is the financing structured? How do you make it work?
So again, each club has its own account. I'll give you an example of a filly that we had named Dial Me. She had won her first. She broke her maiden in her second start and kind of amassed some earnings through a couple of wins early in her career. She had an injury which required surgery, and then she didn't come back at quite the level. In speaking with Wayne Lucas, who trained her at the time, we tried to run her for a claiming tag. And that's a little bit of the balance with the club, is everyone gets attached to the horses, but they don't understand that it's a business too. So that's been a real learning experience for the membership, and how you can't always just run 5th or 6th in allowance races. If your horse isn't at that level, they have to run for a claiming price. So in her case, we ran her for a $20,000 claiming tag. She won the race, but was unfortunately claimed afterwards. So that $20,000 just stayed in her account, and we tracked her career the rest of the way, and eventually claimed her back for $12,500 and retired her. And actually, it's a cool story. One of the club members took her in and has now bred her. So she's got a little baby running around, and the club member posts pictures on the Facebook page, and everyone's really enjoying that. And we did the same thing with a horse named Party Club that we actually claimed back from Mountaineer in West Virginia. We had noticed that her form had fallen off, and we had some residual money from her earnings, so claimed her back. And she's actually also with Dial Me, about to be a mother as well. So like I said, it's all come full circle, and we've enjoyed the process, and have tried to make it a point to make sure that all these horses come back home to us.
That's awesome. So with Warriors Club, what were the chain of events that led to him meeting up with, or you making the partnership with TRF? And if you could just explain a little bit about how he had the injury and he had to have a specific setup.
Yeah, so after his last race, he ran second in a graded stake at Belmont. He had a bit of a knee injury that actually did require a surgical procedure. And after that, we just felt like he had done enough for us, and it would have taken 5 or 6 months to get him back to the races. There was no guarantee that he could come back in the same condition. So at that point in time, we said, this horse has been too good to us. We don't need him to continue racing. We want to find him a great home. We talked to a few of the stallion. We tried to go down the road of standing him at stud, but we couldn't find the right partnership that made sense for us. Call it selfish reasons, because of the club's not-for-profit nature. Selling him for a couple $100,000 and letting a new owner take him and move him or sell him overseas, or if he didn't quite make it as a stud, we didn't know what would happen to him after that. So we kind of decided that none of those deals made sense to us. And ultimately what did make sense to us is to know exactly where he's going to be, to allow all of our club members to come out and see him and visit him and enjoy him throughout his career. And that led us down the path of trying to find the right partner to ultimately find a place for him. And the TRF sort of stepped in, and they've created this incredible sanctuary farm here in Louisville, Kentucky, in partnership actually with Churchill Downs' CEO, Bill Karstanjian. So it all kind of was a homecoming for us. Mr. Karstanjian purchased some land not too far outside of Louisville. The TRF stepped in and has created this incredible farm out there, and there's now 13 or 14 horses, and one of those is Warriors Club, and we couldn't be more proud of where he's at and couldn't be more gratified to the TRF for taking him on, and we can't wait to watch him enjoy his retired life.
Yes, and what do you feel? What did you think when you found out a farm like this was going to be in Louisville and that the TRF was going to have a sanctuary in Louisville, which is the first of its kind?
It's awesome. It's the things that we need. As a person who grew up on the backside, my dad was a trainer. Like I totally understand what these horses give to us and to our community and to our families, and it is incredibly important that we find homes for them and we do the right thing by them. And that was our commitment from day one. Was, the racing club horses are going to be watched for and looked after, and they may not all run under our name because of claiming or because of certain circumstances, but we know that they're always under a watchful eye, and we're always paying attention to what they're doing. And to have this farm here in Louisville just continues to bring awareness to the fact that horses need these second careers and these second homes. And couldn't be more happier to help support them and help get them kickstarted.
And on that note with sanctuary, why do you feel sanctuary is important, and why should we keep talking about sanctuary? Because I feel like we do see a lot of the retrained horses. We see a lot of the facilities that are helping horses go into other sports. But the ones essentially, just like in the case of Warriors Club, that are sound enough to continue life, but need a place and aren't going to be athletic anymore. Can you just tell me about sanctuary and its importance?
Yeah, it's hugely important. To your point, we see all the thoroughbreds that go to the Retired Racehorse Project, and that is so cool. I love seeing that stuff, but there's many other horses that just can't do it. And Warriors Club was that case. His knee injury, he's not unsound by any means, but the pressures of jumping and those types of things wasn't going to work for him. And so he needed to just be able to chill out and relax, and that sanctuary farm provides him just that. And it's a huge part of what we're trying to do here in the industry, and a much needed part of the thoroughbred aftercare conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the visitation is going to be so special. Is Warriors Club going to have 200 owners coming and visiting him often?
I do. I think so, actually. He's definitely got a fan club. There's folks who love bringing their grandkids or kids around, and there's plenty of people that I'm sure will stop in at the farm and deliver peppermints and carrots and all the fun stuff. And that'll expose them to the TRF and them to aftercare, and they'll be able to make personal contributions, and it'll just snowball from there.
Yeah, and you have a big, entity, a powerhouse entity behind this club, and you have very enthusiastic members, it sounds like. But what can others learn from this? What are some steps? It sounds like you have a mobilized large group of people that can help you plan and organize. But I don't see this that often in my research thus far. So what are some steps owners can take early on, just in planning and things they can think about?
I think it's just that. I think it's actually having a plan and actually thinking through the entire horse's, not only his racing career, but his post-racing career. And when we set out to create the club, we were very thoughtful in how we, were able to structure the club to allow for funds to be held back for instances where we needed to claim horses. And we were thoughtful in how we expressed to members our desire to always make sure to take care of these horses. And that came from having a plan from day one. And I think it would help if owners had a similar plan. I mean, you could do something so simple as just, take out a little of his earnings and put it off to the side, or just make a commitment. There's a few ownership groups. Some of the farms have done some cool things where I've seen on the backs of full papers of their registry papers, it says, if this horse ever needs a home, please contact, such and such at such and such farm. And I just think things like that are so cool that people take the time to go through those steps and make sure that when the situation arises that the horse needs a home, that it's there and it's present and it's in front of whomever its current owner is. And so I think things like that and thinking about the long term would be the best place to start.
Yeah, and can you just talk a little bit about what you gave an example earlier, but the earnings thing, is it fairly simple to do the math and set a little bit back? And I was going to ask you anyway, I know you can check the boxes off on the Jockey Club papers and people want to do that and everybody does that, but is that enough? And is there just a bit more in terms of, like you said, it's almost like for humans, financial planning, retirement funds, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a ton of money to ultimately retire a horse. It doesn't take any in some cases. There are organizations like the TRF that have funding available and programs available where folks can, donate the horse at no cost. I mean, certainly, like in our case, we provided a hefty check to go along with the horse, and I'm sure they're very appreciative of that. But, there's plenty of organizations out there that will take a horse that is in need of a home and they're doing a great job fundraising in order to be able to do that type of thing. So, I think there's plenty of opportunities out there that if someone wanted to do the right thing and just did a little bit of research, they could find a spot in their area where they could certainly find somebody to help or find someone that can point them in the right direction of where to go for these types of resources.
Excellent. Thanks. And what have you learned through this experience?
I've learned to manage expectations. I think that all of our club members came into these things thinking that they were going to have Kentucky Derby horses every time. And it's not like that in the racing industry. And so I've had to be very upfront about saying, look, we might have our horse claimed, and this is how the business works. And this is why our trainers made decisions to do these types of things. And this is what cost X and why this surgical procedure was needed and why the horse had to be turned out. So for me, it was all about just educating our group. And the thing that I'm most proud of is the fact that we've had well over 100 people go off on their own and do other ventures or join other syndicates. There's a group of members that have gotten together, about 8 or 10 of them, and claimed a couple of horses. And those are the types of things that make me most proud. And I think being upfront about the things and transparent about what goes into being a thoroughbred owner, has played a role in that and allowed these folks to feel much more comfortable about going out and spending their hard-earned money on racehorses.
Do you think there are more options for retirement than people realize just off the tops of their heads?
I do. I think if you really get into the weeds and you really make some phone calls and you do some homework, there's hundreds of fantastic organizations out there that support racehorses. It's just a matter of wanting to do the right thing and going out there and looking for them. I wish there were more. They're never going to be enough. I wish there was ways where we could make it even simpler. But where we're at right now is, the organizations are out there doing great work, and we need to raise money for them and help amplify their message and continue to support them.
Can't go off air here without giving the coach a nod. What was it like for this group to have Hall of Famer D. Wayne Lukas training their horse, or horses rather? Yeah,
so when we sat around in a boardroom and 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we were kicking around, all right, what trainer is going to move the needle here? Like, we have this racing club idea. How do we pull this off? Who's going to be open to it? Who's going to be willing to have 200 people knocking on their barn door? And somebody threw out the name of Wayne Lukas, and everybody kind of said, he's not going to want to mess with that. So we went back there and talked to him, and he couldn't have been a bigger supporter, couldn't have been more excited about the idea. Every time we had a morning meet and greet, he just put on a show and used his charm and had people drawn in. And it was so much fun to have a person like that associated with the club, especially in its infancy stages. He kind of gave it that sense of legitimacy that, sort of solidified it as a real deal. and an opportunity to really learn from one of the greatest of all time. And I know in talking to him how much joy it gives him to have seen all those people so excited and to have made the impact that he did. And we couldn't be more appreciative of Wayne and the time he's given to the club. And it was a lot of fun, and he made it really special.
That's awesome. And let's give a shout out and a little sneak peek, I guess, to TRF and Chestnut Hall. You have been on the ground already. You've been there to meet up with Warriors Club and greet him in his new home and do the check presentation. What is it like there? Tell us about the farm. What can people expect?
Yeah, it's really nice. It's right outside. It's about 20 miles outside of Louisville in an area called Goshen, Kentucky. It's surrounded by other farms, and it's everyone thinks Lexington's the only place in Kentucky with horse farms, and that's not the case. Goshen and the Prospect and the Skylight area just outside of Louisville, is certainly not Lexington, but it has a horse flair. There's a couple of training centers right there. There's Hermitage Farm just down the road, which is a historic farm. And Chestnut Hall is a great space. Like I said, Mr. Karstantian took it over last year. He invested a lot of personal capital funds into fixing it up and redoing fences and making it suitable for horses. It had been left unattended to for a couple of years. So he really dug in there and got it all fixed up. And it's a great space. It's a beautiful setting. Oak trees, and there's a historic home on the property that the TRF and other charities will be able to use to raise money and host events. And it's an incredible space, and I look forward to seeing all the ways that it's used and the ideas that they come up with to continue to build awareness for the farm itself and the TRF.
Awesome, and I think we'll be able to visit starting soon through Horse Country Tours. So if you want to check out Horse Country Tours, trfinc.com. And is there a page for the racing club?
Yeah, it's just churchilldowns.com/racing club. And that has some of the details on how the club works. We didn't do a new club for this year. We started 2 last year in 2020, and with the pandemic and the uncertainties around kind of that on-track experience and people not wanting to travel, we paused it for this year, but look to do some bigger and better things in the future.
Yeah, lots of ways that any of us can get involved, and it's really, I think Chestnut Hall will be TRF's testament to accessibility. They have their prison programs and they have a bunch of things going on, but this will be a first of its kind place where anyone can come and visit and be up close with the horses, which is the best. So Gary, thank you so much for sharing with us. Congratulations on this big achievement and everything you're doing with taking care of your horses long-term and planning for them. And we hope we see you again soon.
Thanks so much for having us.
Okay, take care.